Hey there, Dr. Mamina here. Today we're diving into one of my favorite topics as a derm, and that is sunscreen. We all know how important it is to protect our skin from harmful UV rays, but are you sure you're using it right? More than 90% of skin cancers are caused by sun exposure, so knowing how to effectively use sunscreen to protect your skin is key. If you don't know me, I'm Dr. Mamina a triple board certified dermatologist, internist, and dermatopathologist with a special interest in integrative medicine. I've been treating patients in dermatology for over 15 years and have been in private practice for 10 years. I want to clear something up before we jump into this sunscreen video, and that is sunscreen does not cause cancer. There's a lot of misinformation out there about sunscreen causing cancer, but this is far from the truth. I have a whole video addressing this myth that you can check out here. Now let's talk about some common mistakes I see people make with sunscreen. Mistake number one is not using enough sunscreen. So for your face, you should be using about a quarter to a half teaspoon of sunscreen. But how much is that? I think an easy way to remember is to use 2 to 3 finger lengths worth of sunscreen. Now for your body, you want to aim for about an ounce. A good way to remember that is it's either a shot glass or golf ball size amount. Using less than these recommended amounts means that you're probably not getting the full SPF protection that's listed on the bottle. Okay, mistake number 2 is not reapplying your sunscreen. This one is huge. A lot of people think that they put on sunscreen once, they are good to go. They are now invincible to all the harmful UV rays of the sun. And it's really important to remember to reapply, okay? You want to reapply every 2 hours, especially if you are going to be outdoors for prolonged periods of time. Also, if you're going to go into the water or if you're sweating, doing a lot of activities, you may need to reapply more often because that sweat or that water can diminish the effectiveness of your sunscreen. Sunscreen, I know, can be annoying to reapply. I think that the sunscreen stick, sunscreen spray are easier. I don't think that they're like my number one go-to primary form of sun protection, but I think that they're an easy, more convenient way to reapply. But just remember, with sprays and sticks, you actually need more than you think you do. So just keep that in mind when you use those. Another common mistake I see people make is only using sunscreen when the sun is out. So UV rays can still penetrate clouds. So even on cloudy days, your skin is at risk. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people with sunburns coming into my office because there was like a festival over the weekend, but it was cloudy all weekend, so they thought they were fine. Nope. Still sunburn. And don't just use sunscreen during the summer. UV rays are present all year round, so it's so important to protect your skin every day, even in the winter. And actually, I know this probably doesn't sound true, but you should be extra careful in cold places with snow because UV light can reflect off of the snow and increase your exposure. So that's a big tip for anyone who skis. Make sure you're putting sunscreen on the rest of your face that's not covered by the mask. This next mistake is way too common, and that is using old sunscreen. Because so many people only use sunscreen during the summer, which you shouldn't, we talked about that. But because they only do that, they end up only using these old bottles that they find in like their medicine cabinet or their beach bag. The problem is that sunscreen expires, and when it expires, it'll lose its protective benefits over time. So it's important to always check that expiration date on your sunscreen before you use it. If there's no expiration date, a good rule of thumb is to use it within 3 years of purchase, which actually seemed like a lot to me. But this is because the US Food and Drug Administration requires that sunscreen remain at its original strength for at least 3 years. So you can use leftover sunscreen from year to year, but if you can't remember when you bought it, it's probably best to just toss it. There's also the mistake of not applying sunscreen to all the affected areas. So I love seeing that more and more people are talking about the importance of sunscreen, and I've seen a rise in people protecting their faces, but there are other areas that people forget about. So remember to apply sunscreen to your neck, to your ears, especially important for guys because they don't have as much hair covering their ears. Also apply it to the tops of your hands. And depending on what you're wearing, you also want to make sure you're covering your forearms and your chest. And most people also don't think about these areas, but you should also remember to protect your eyelids and your lips. Of course, if you're wearing a swimsuit, you want to apply it on all exposed areas. People mistakenly rely solely on sunscreen, but we know that it's not 100% effective at protecting your skin. For additional protection, you really want to wear sun protective clothing, things like hats, sunglasses, UPF shirts. You want to look for that UPF label to indicate how effectively the fabric blocks UV rays. There's also sunscreen in a pill, not really because it doesn't replace your sunscreen, but there's a supplement called HelioCare. It contains an antioxidant called polypodium leucotomus. There's other brands besides HelioCare. HelioCare was one of the first to come to market, but this antioxidant can also help protect your DNA from excessive UV rays. Like I said, it does not replace your sunscreen, but it can be used in conjunction with your sunscreen. Another mistake that I commonly see amongst women is relying only on the sunscreen in their makeup. Don't get me wrong, I love a good SPF in a foundation, but the sunscreen in foundation is usually not sufficient unless you pile it on your face. Like, you have to cake it on, which most people don't do because you can look weird or scary. So always apply sunscreen before you put on your makeup. If you do decide to wear foundation, I will still recommend looking for ones with SPF for that extra protection. I like to do that on top of my sunscreen. I've recently been a big fan of the IT Cosmetics CC cream. It has SPF 40 as well as other wonderful, lovely ingredients to help hydrate and nourish your skin. And finally, the last common mistake I see people make when using sunscreen is putting moisturizer on top of their sunscreen or mixing sunscreen with their moisturizer. So when you mix sunscreen with other products, the SPF may not evenly get distributed, so parts of your face may get more or less protection than other areas. But even if you evenly mix the products, it can dilute the overall effectiveness of the sunscreen. So I would just stay away from mixing your moisturizer with your sunscreen and just apply your moisturizer before your sunscreen. And this is what I just recommend doing daily, wearing a moisturizer and wearing a sunscreen over that. Now, there are sunscreens out there that are moisturizers with SPF or moisturizing sunscreens. You can certainly just do that and skip that step of moisturizing before your sunscreen. Well, that's it. These are the most common sunscreen mistakes I see as a derm and ones that you might be making. By avoiding them, you can ensure that your skin is properly protected from harmful UV rays. I hope you found this video on all too common sunscreen mistakes that we see helpful. If you enjoyed this video and you want to learn more about skincare, be sure to download my free gift, my top 5 skincare favorites. And remember to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to my channel to start your holistic wellness journey for your mind, body, and skin. Thanks for watching.